Do what I say or you're done. My stepdad loves firing people who forget their place. Her voice cuts across the open office. 3 cubicles over, keyboards stop clicking. Someone's coffee mug hits their desk with a dull thud. The entire floor just heard the boss's stepdaughter threaten me. I'm Ryan Mitchell, 32 years old. I just spent the last 7 years building a pharmaceutical supply chain from absolute chaos into something that actually works. Fixed a distribution nightmare that cost the company $165,000 in FDA penalties. Personally saved 5 major hospital contracts that were ready to switch to competitors. Got told at every performance review that I was being groomed for Director of Regional Logistics, just had to wait for the right timing. Then came Tuesday morning. Gerald called a mandatory all-hands at 8:15 a.m. 26 people crammed into Conference Room A. Gerald stood at the front wearing his overpriced suit and that rehearsed smile of someone about to deliver bad news they're calling good. He clicked the remote. The first slide appeared. New Director of Regional Logistics, Madison. Madison, Gerald's stepdaughter. Different last name, same shortcut to success. The same Madison who started in late August asking me elementary questions about how temperature-controlled shipping works. The applause started instantly, that automatic corporate clapping where nobody's genuinely happy, but everyone knows they're supposed to perform enthusiasm. Madison stood from her chair 2 rows behind me, smile practiced in the mirror. Gerald said Madison brings innovative thinking and fresh perspectives to the role, looking around the room, carefully avoiding my eyes. Fresh perspectives meaning 4 months of experience in an industry she'd never touched before. Then he added my name like a footnote, said I'd been essential in mentoring Madison and helping her acclimate. Mentoring, not leading, not building from scratch, mentoring. The meeting ended. People shook Madison's hand with forced smiles. I gathered my notebook and stood last. Lisa from operations caught my eye from across the room, silently mouthing, "Are you okay?" I nodded once. Marcus, my colleague who'd been here almost as long as me, was already at the door, jaw clenched tight, looking back at me like he wanted to say something but couldn't find words. Within 12 minutes, an HR email appeared in my inbox, time-stamped 7:58 a.m., 17 minutes before the meeting even started. Subject line, revised reporting structure, effective immediately. My name was listed under Madison's as Senior Supply Chain Coordinator. They demoted me in everything except title and didn't have the decency to tell me to my face first. By 4:30 p.m., I'd printed a single page, knocked on Gerald's office door, and placed the envelope on his desk. "This is my 2 weeks' notice." He actually laughed. "You're being emotional, Ryan. Sit down. Let's talk through this like adults." I stayed standing. "You made decisions about my future without consulting me. I'm accepting reality now." His expression shifted from dismissive to serious fast. "Think carefully about this. You have responsibilities. Stability matters at your age." Translation, you need this job more than we need you. I'll complete the standard transition period, 2 weeks. He looked relieved before he could hide it. He thought my notice meant I'd spend 14 days being a good soldier and making this easy. What he didn't realize was that compliance and cooperation are very different things.
Friday morning, Madison stopped by my desk wanting a comprehensive walkthrough, wanted to shadow me for several days, and really dive deep into my systems. I told her documentation was in the shared drive, system access protocols were included, contact lists were in the CRM database. She shifted her weight uncomfortably. I was hoping for something more hands-on. "That's not part of my transition responsibilities. You have 2 weeks to review documentation and ask specific questions." Her smile went forced. "I think Gerald would want you to be more collaborative." "Gerald can clarify expectations if they differ from what I understand." 7 minutes later, Gerald called me to his office. Madison was already there, looking like she'd just received consolation about something terrible. Gerald said Madison was now in charge, and I needed to support her transition completely. I'm providing documentation and answering specific questions. She needs more than that. She needs your active cooperation. I submitted my resignation. I'm not training my replacement beyond what's professionally required. Gerald's face went crimson. That's insubordinate. His voice rose. Two people walking past his office slowed their pace. I didn't move, didn't blink. Let him sit with that word, insubordinate, like I owed him loyalty after what he'd just done. The silence stretched until it hurt. No, that's accurate, I said. I'm fulfilling my notice period. Nothing in my employment contract requires me to train someone who got the position I should have received. Gerald threatened to give bad references. I shrugged. Anyone who calls will hear about my actual work performance. I walked out before he could respond, sent him an email summary of the conversation within 12 minutes. That afternoon, I documented exactly what I was contractually obligated to document: process workflows, system architecture, account hierarchies. What it didn't include were the hundreds of judgment calls I made every week that kept things running, the vendor relationships built on years of trust, the client preferences I'd memorized, the institutional knowledge that lived only in my head. Madison scheduled 4 meetings for the following week. I declined all 4 with identical messages. Please reference documentation in shared drive, available for specific questions via email. She appeared at my desk 25 minutes later, voice louder than necessary. Why are you making this so difficult? I'm trying to learn. I'm providing what was agreed upon. If you need more, take it up with Gerald. She leaned closer, voice dropping, but still audible to nearby cubicles. Keep this attitude up, and my stepdad's going to handle you personally. Lisa stopped typing at her desk 4 cubicles over. Everyone went silent. Marcus's eyes went wide from across the room. Madison realized what she'd just said. Her face flushed red. I simply went back to typing without responding. 2 interns at the printer froze mid-conversation. Someone's pen clattered onto their desk. The entire floor heard it. Lisa appeared at my desk minutes later. I heard that. You okay? I'm fine. She glanced toward Madison's new office. That was completely inappropriate. Many things are inappropriate. I'm counting days now. She dropped a small bag of homemade cookies on my desk. I'm documenting what I heard in case this escalates. The cookies were the best thing that happened that week. 12 minutes later, a Teams message popped up from Madison. Just to be clear, insubordination during your transition period won't be tolerated. My stepdad takes these situations very seriously. I screenshotted it immediately and forwarded it to my personal email address. That evening, I mentioned the situation to my girlfriend, Rachel, over Chinese takeout, gave her the full story: the promotion that should have been mine, the stepdaughter with 0 experience, the demands for unpaid labor on my way out. She set her fork down slowly, stared at me with this careful expression. You're burning professional bridges over this. People will remember how you handled it. I'm not burning anything. I'm just not carrying things that aren't mine to carry anymore. She shook her head. It looks bad, though. Walking away when someone needs help. That's what everyone will say. You're making yourself look bitter. Same pattern everywhere. Gerald rewrote my 7 years as mentoring staff. Madison rewrote my boundaries as sabotage. Now Rachel was rewriting my refusal to work for free as unprofessional. Everyone needed me to be the problem, so their narrative worked. I stood up, grabbed my keys from the counter. I'm not doing this.
What? Wait. Her voice shifted quickly. I'm just trying to help you see how this appears from outside. I'm not dating someone who rewrites reality to feel comfortable. I left before she could respond, picked up my stuff from her apartment the next morning while she was at yoga, blocked her number that afternoon. By Wednesday, things started crumbling. A vendor approval that normally took me 15 minutes sat in Madison's queue for 7 hours. By the time she figured out the routing, the supplier had already bumped the order to the next cycle. Cost? $2,600 in expedited shipping fees. Then a hospital network in Arizona called with a capacity issue. Needed to increase their weekly pharmaceutical order by 35% starting next month. Routine request. I would have confirmed warehouse capacity, adjusted distribution routes, negotiated pricing with suppliers, and had it locked down by end of business. Madison scheduled an exploratory meeting to assess the request. The client emailed back asking why a straightforward capacity increase required a meeting. Thursday afternoon brought a product recall notice. Standard but time-sensitive. Had to identify which accounts received affected medication batches, notify them immediately, arrange returns and replacements. Normally took me about 90 minutes. Madison stared at the notice like it was written in ancient Greek. Found me at my desk. I need help with this. Documentation's in the shared drive under emergency protocols. Ryan, this is serious. People's health could be at risk. Which is exactly why you should have familiarized yourself with emergency procedures already. Are you really going to let people get hurt just to prove a point? I stood up. I'm not letting anything happen. You're the director. Direct. Gerald appeared behind her. What's the problem? I pointed at my screen. Documentation for recall procedures is in the shared drive. Everything she needs is there. Gerald turned to Madison. Can you handle this or not? I can, but it would be faster if Ryan helped. He walked away. Handle it. 25 minutes later, Gerald stormed back out and told me to coordinate the recall, called it a direct order. I opened the emergency procedures document and turned my screen toward him. It's all here, step by step. Madison has identical access. She can follow the protocol, or you can admit she's not qualified to run logistics. You're putting people at risk. No, I'm not signing off on anything that breaks compliance protocols, period. The procedures are clear. She has authorization, system access, and documented protocols. If she can't execute basic emergency procedures, that's not my problem. He blinked, turned to Madison. Do it now. The recall process began at 2:45 p.m. She spent the next 5 hours fumbling through it, made mistakes, had to redo notifications. I wasn't going to interfere, but I also wasn't going to let a safety notification miss the deadline while my name was still on company records. She missed 3 accounts in the initial sweep. I had to point it out to Gerald when I saw it in the system. He made her fix it. The whole thing that should have taken 90 minutes took her until nearly 8 p.m. Several clients complained about delayed notifications. By Thursday afternoon, the Arizona hospital network called Gerald directly, frustrated about why their capacity request was taking so long. He pulled both of us into his office, demanding to know why this was taking 5 days. Madison pulled up a project timeline she'd created with phases and milestones. Gerald asked how long it would have taken me. 5 hours, maybe 7 if there were complications. His jaw clenched. Do it. Not my account anymore. Madison's the director. She decides how to handle it. Is this a direct order? Gerald knew the trap. If he ordered me to take over, he admitted Madison couldn't do the job. He sat there stuck for a solid 12 seconds before Madison interrupted, asking me to handle it this one time. I'm fulfilling my notice obligations. This isn't one of them. The documentation's all there. Use it. Gerald's face went purple. That's insubordination. You promoted her. That includes the problems. Let her manage them. The Arizona account took Madison another 4 days. By the time she resolved it, the client had already started talking to competitors. Gerald had to personally call to smooth things over. Didn't work. They reduced their order volume by 18% the following month.
Brandon sneered. Don't play innocent. You manipulated him. $1 billion empire belongs to family, not some broke piano teacher. James rose calmly, holding up folders. Actually, William Bennett anticipated these accusations. He left written and video statements clarifying that Maya was of sound character and his decision was deliberate. Contesting this will would be futile. My father snatched the folder, flipping pages furiously. Fabricated! You think a judge will believe this over his own son's word? Depends on which judge, a deep voice interrupted. All eyes turned as Judge Morrison stepped forward. Unfortunately for you, Thomas, I am one of them. Your father asked me personally to oversee any disputes. These documents, this evidence, it's airtight. You won't win. Color drained from my father's face, but rage quickly replaced fear. He jabbed a finger at me. Ungrateful brat! You're tearing this family apart! I swallowed hard, voice trembling but firm. No, you did that long ago when you chose money over love. My mother's composure cracked, voice rising shrill. After everything we gave you, private school, lessons, vacations, you repay us like this? $5 billion belongs to the Bennetts, not to you alone. Margaret emerged quietly, holding a small box. Actually, Mrs. Bennett, your daughter belongs here more than anyone. These are journals your mother-in-law kept. Every visit, every demand, every kindness, they prove exactly why William made his choice. My mother froze as Margaret handed the box to James. He pulled out a page and read aloud. Thomas demanded money again. When we refused, he shouted we were stingy. Maya came later with soup and stayed until William's fever broke. The room went silent except for crackling fire. Brandon suddenly lunged forward, slamming hands on the table. Enough! We don't care about your stupid journals. Maya, just sign the transfer. I need capital for my platform. Grandpa would have wanted me to succeed. Sarah's voice cut sharp as glass. He already gave you chances, Brandon. Multiple failed ventures, each burning through money. Your grandfather refused for a reason, because you never earned it. Brandon's face turned crimson. He turned on me. You think you're better than me? You'll choke under this pressure. You'll come begging for help. I stood straighter, fire rising in my chest. No, Brandon, for the first time, I'm not the one begging. My father exploded, sweeping documents off the table, scattering them across the floor. This is garbage. None of this changes the truth. This fortune is mine by right. By right? Judge Morrison thundered. Your father's will is law. You have no claim, Thomas. None. Then Edward stepped forward, holding a USB drive. Mr. Bennett had me install security cameras last year. They recorded something you should see. James plugged it into Sarah's laptop. Footage flickered to life. My father, mother, and Brandon rifling through drawers days after the funeral, stuffing jewelry and documents into bags. My mother gasped, That's out of context." A police chief who'd slipped in through the back stepped forward, arms crossed. Context won't matter in court. Theft is theft. You're one step from handcuffs. For the first time, my father faltered. His bluster shrank, shoulders sagging. My mother's hands shook. Brandon cursed, backing away from the screen. I seized the moment, voice cutting through chaos. I'm done being afraid of you. Grandpa trusted me. You can threaten, scream, steal, but you'll never take his legacy. Not from me. Silence. Then my father's voice, broken and venomous. If you walk this path, Maya, you are no longer part of this family. I met his eyes, steady. You made that choice the moment you tried to destroy me. The mansion seemed to exhale as they turned, one by one, and stormed out. Footsteps echoed down marble halls, doors slamming, engines roaring as their cars disappeared down the drive. I stood frozen, chest heaving, knees threatening to give out. But then I felt a hand on my shoulder, James' calm, steady grip. You did it, he murmured. You stood your ground. For the first time, I believed him. The days that followed blurred into meetings, paperwork, and decisions. James guided me through legal documents. Sarah walked me through company operations. Daniel explained investments. Margaret kept the house running. Edward never left my side. For the first time in my life, I wasn't overlooked or invisible. I was the one everyone turned to, the one entrusted with a legacy stretching far beyond money. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from my parents in Brandon, threats, manipulation, false sweetness. I didn't answer. I had nothing left to say. Instead, I poured myself into what mattered, honoring Grandpa. 3 months later, the William Bennett Foundation for Education and Arts launched. We dedicated $1.5 billion to scholarships, music programs, and community art centers. I stood on stage at the opening ceremony, foundation banner behind me, hands trembling as I adjusted the microphone. "This isn't just money," I said, scanning the crowd of students, teachers, and community members. "It's a legacy." My grandfather believed in integrity, hard work, and giving opportunities to those who need it most. Today, we carry that forward. Applause filled the air. For once, I didn't shrink from the applause. Life at the mansion transformed. The halls that once echoed with loneliness now buzzed with warmth. On Sundays, I hosted dinners, not with blood relatives, but with the people Grandpa trusted. James, Sarah, Margaret, Edward, even company employees and their families. We sat around the long oak table, laughing, sharing stories, passing dishes like an actual family. It was messy, loud, imperfect, and it was mine. One crisp autumn morning, I drove to the cemetery alone. Leaves had turned gold, carpeting the ground in warmth. I carried white lilies, Grandpa's favorite, and knelt beside his grave. For a long time, I just sat, staring at carved letters. William Bennett, 1938-2024. A Legacy of Integrity. "Hi, Grandpa," I whispered, voice catching. "I hope you can see me. I hope you're proud." Wind rustled through trees. I took a deep breath. "I'm trying my best. The foundation is helping hundreds of kids. Some will be first in their families to attend college. Your employees are cared for. The company's thriving. And I think I finally understand. It was never about the billions. It was about the values behind them, about using wealth to build, not destroy." Tears blurred my eyes, but I smiled through them. "I promise I'll keep carrying that forward. I won't let your name or your trust be wasted." A gust of wind swept across the cemetery, scattering leaves around me. For a moment, it felt like an answer. That night, sitting at the grand piano in the mansion, fingers moving across keys, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Yes, my blood family had turned their backs. Yes, they'd tried to break me, but I wasn't broken. I'd built something new, something stronger, a family of choice, a mission bigger than myself. And I knew this was only the beginning, because the true inheritance wasn't the $5 billion sitting in accounts or investments. It was the fire inside me, the determination to live with integrity, to protect what mattered, to carry forward the lessons of a man who'd been more than a billionaire. He'd been my hero, my teacher, my safe place, my grandfather. As I played the last note, sound echoing through the mansion he once filled with laughter, I whispered into the quiet, "I'll never let you down."
He'd been getting more agitated watching me talk to Patricia and the CEO of another major distributor. Something snapped. He walked over, interrupted my conversation with Patricia and 3 other executives. "Ryan," voice too loud, "we need to discuss your presentation." "We've talked. This isn't the time." "You made some accusations in there. Indirect, but accusations nonetheless." "I made observations based on experience. If you heard accusations, that's on you." Patricia looked between us, obviously picking up the tension. Gerald pointed at me. "You built your whole presentation around what happened at my company." "My presentation was about operational systems. If it applied to your situation, that's coincidence." "Nonsense. Everyone knows what you're talking about when you discuss institutional knowledge and failed leadership transitions." Patricia spoke up. "I think you've made your point, Gerald." Gerald looked at her like he could intimidate a CEO. "Don't defend him. He sabotaged an entire region on his way out." "That's not what happened," I said calmly. Madison had been standing at the edge of the circle this entire time. Patricia's colleague turned to her. "So you're running Gerald's operations now? How's the transition going?" Before she could answer, Gerald stepped in, voice way too loud. "Madison's doing exceptional work, really turning things around after some personnel challenges we had earlier this year." The VP looked at Madison directly, expecting an answer from her, not from Gerald. Madison blurted, "He's right. Ryan didn't sabotage anything. I just wasn't ready." She stopped, face going pale, realizing what she'd just said. She turned and walked away fast, gone. Gerald stood frozen, jaw working, but nothing coming out. Nearby conversations thinned out. A few heads turned. He noticed. Patricia spoke first. "I think you should leave, Gerald." He looked around, realized people were staring, walked away quickly, headed for the exit. Patricia turned to me. That was uncomfortable. I shrugged. "Truth usually is." She smiled slightly. "Still interested in that consulting conversation?" "Absolutely. I'll have my people reach out next week." The reception continued. I stayed another hour, networked, made connections, built my professional presence. Marcus found me near the end. We stepped outside the conference hall where it was quieter. "That was legendary," he said. "Didn't plan it. Made it even better. Gerald self-destructed. Madison threw him under the bus in front of Patricia and half the regional pharmaceutical logistics leadership." Marcus shook his head. "You didn't even do anything." "Exactly," I said, and I went back inside. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't doing something dramatic. It's simply stopping carrying people who never deserved to be carried in the first place and letting gravity do the rest.